Hello there, welcome to Inkquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with what is hopefully another short video. This is another one of a series in Inkquiring Minds Workbench. I just received this Wingsung Junlai 930 fountain pen, enormous fountain pen. I did an unboxing for members and then I inked it up to take it to a pen club meeting, and to my chagrin, the pen leaked all the way through this section here and got ink all over my hands and everybody else's hands. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to take this pen apart to check out where that leak might be, and that'll give me an opportunity to do a disassembly video on this Wingsung 930. I'll be doing a review of this pen very shortly, but number one, this is an enormous nib. I got a broad, and it is a Junlai 2013 number 9 size steel nib and plastic feed. Now it's very, very similar to the Mont Blanc in terms of its construction and how the nib goes into the section. Here's my Wingsung 630, which is identical in size and shape to the Mont Blanc 149. And you can see the sections are very similar, but just difference in scale. And that number 9 size nib just dwarfs the number 8 size nib. Just for comparison purposes, here is an Asvine J16 with a number 6 size nib. So you can see the difference in scale. And this 930 nib removes exactly the same way the 630 nib comes out of this pen. Of course, this one is a 14 karat gold nib and this one is steel. To get the nib off, there are two small notches on either side of that feed and nib in that nib collar, and that's for a tool to go down inside there and unscrew this. And that whole top portion of the section comes with the nib unit. That's part of the nib unit, and that's where it is leaking for me, right there. So I think I need to take this off and add some silicone grease in there to keep that from leaching ink. Now, having a tool really helps because Wingsung have sealed that unit inside. There's a silicone O-ring at the back of the nib section, and there's some kind of a plastic resin kind of material. I've already had this apart. So there's this clear material that came off, just separated from the back of the nib unit. It's not an O-ring or anything. It looks like sealant that dries and seals the back of that unit. But I have got a Wingsung tool for the Wingsung 630 that almost fits those notches. It holds enough of the notches for me to get a grip on it to turn this nib. But if you give it enough pressure with some gripping material and hold on to that collar at the same time, you should be able to unscrew that nib unit from the section, just like that. And there's the nib unit, and you can see where those notches in the tool fit into the notches of the collar. Because this is a bigger nib unit, it doesn't quite fit perfectly, but it fits enough to get a grip to be able to give it a turn. And this is where it was leaking. So there's no O-ring right there. And I'm surprised. I thought that Wingsung would have put a silicone O-ring right there. They probably should, since I've got it leaking now. So I'm going to coat that flat surface of the section with some silicone grease. Now, the Wingsung 930 came with this silicone grease, what they call silicone grease. It's actually silicone oil. I'm going to actually put some grease, slightly more viscous than the oil, on that section right there when I screw it back down again. But let's see about taking this piston apart, because there is no tool for taking this piston apart. You unscrew the blind cap, and you can see right there that there's some flats right there and right there for a wrench to go in, but this wrench doesn't fit at all. All my other wrenches I've tried don't fit. This is much too big. So I put my digital calipers on it and measured it, and I get 9.6 for those flatted sides. So I need a box wrench that has a 9.6 diameter opening. Now I bought myself a set of very inexpensive tools on eBay. They are box wrenches, and the key thing about these is that they're very, very thin. They're called mini box wrenches, but even at being mini, they needed to be ground down. So I measured the gap here that I've got to be able to get the wrench in. Got about 2.7 millimeters that wrench needs to be, and it was well over 3 millimeters at its thickest point. So I ground down the thickness of that and also opened it up so that it would have a 10.6 diameter millimeter opening to be able to fit inside. Once I had it ground down, this will be a reverse thread. We put that box wrench on those flatted bits, so it's a reverse thread. So I'm turning the barrel rather than the wrench. And we can pull out the piston assembly. Now you can clean that barrel, and this is where I discovered with my endoscopic camera that there was some debris residue left on the end of that section, right in that opening right there. So I cleaned all that out. I'm going to add a little bit of silicone oil, and I'm not going to be able to hold onto that wrench at the same time. This is a two-handed operation to try to drive some of that oil onto that piston. And this kind of confuses me that they give you some silicone oil, but no method of getting this piston mechanism out to use that silicone oil. But we're going to spread that around. And I don't want to open this up any more than this because that tailpiece will come off, and then you'll have a right pain of a time to try to organize the length of that and the length of that so that it closes properly. So I just pulled this out, left that piston knob exactly where it was so I can reinsert the piston into the barrel with the grease, rub it up and down a few times, and then we're going to go the opposite. Instead of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, we're going to go righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. So I'm turning the barrel so that that thread goes the opposite way to tighten. We're going to grab the barrel and we're just going to turn that wrench so we get it hand tight. There, not too much. We don't want to break that plastic. And that piston should work back and forth. There we go. Now we can clean our nib unit of any ink, and now I want to seal that section. And for this I'm going to use actual silicone grease, not this less viscous stuff, the actual grease. I got this from the Inky Nib, but it doesn't have to be specialist silicone grease that you can get at Gold Spot or at Goulet Pens. I went to my local hardware store and I got Plumber's silicone grease. It's the same stuff, and this was about half the price. But what I want to do is I want to dredge the top flat part of my section in some of this grease. And I'm just going to make sure I have a bead of silicone grease on top of that section. I'm going to get a clean cotton swab and just carve it out from the inside. So most of it is on the outside. And then we're going to close our nib down on top of that. So we get a nice seal. Hand tight. Then I can wipe off the excess silicone grease. And there we go. The disassembly and reassembly of a Wingsong 930. Thanks for watching.
I made this.